I know for a fact that there's been studies done to show that you're going to increase your revenue by at least 20% if in fact you do have a documented sales process that you follow religiously. How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business. Welcome to Business for Builders podcast. Welcome to you if you're in YouTube land. My name's Max. I'm the CEO of Smith & Sons here in Canada. And on this episode, I'm going to be talking about the sales process. Now, I'm going to dive deep into a bit of detail without boring you to tears, I hope. I'm wanting to add value. And so, look, if you love what you hear, like and subscribe and share the information if you know somebody that might be able to benefit from that. So look, I think really what a lot of builders do, and we're about to bring our 10th general contracting franchise through our initial training here at head office. And what we find is that, when I talk to them about, and I like to get to know, all of our GCs and where they're at, but most of the time they don't have, a documented sales process. And, I think that I know for a fact that there's been studies done to show that you're going to increase your revenue by at least 20% if in fact you do have a documented sales process that you follow religiously. I think there's certainly a lot to be designed within any sales process, and I guess actually if I was going to actually bring into this episode, and show you, for those that are watching on YouTube, the size of our operations file. There's so many things to cover off, and it does take a while for all that information to sort of download, because it's, a lot of our general contractors go from not having a documented sales process where they are just shooting from the hip and where they are making it up on the fly and where they are handling meetings differently because they basically let the clients buy in accordance with their buying process instead of us, general contractors determining that process. And then we give them this, 700-page operations file, which is split up into about 18 sections. And, it's a totally new world. And so this is why we do initial training and ongoing training, because we can't possibly download that in 5 minutes or in 4 days or whatever is it that we do. So what I want to do is I want to quickly break down in a few minutes or as quick as I can, sort of and as accurately as I can, so you really do get a good landscape understanding of what might be a better way for you and your general contracting company. And certainly this won't cover everything, but I'm going to try and cover off in macro and some of the major points, and then you might be able to do some research and come up with something that actually suits what you do in amongst your own sales process. Now, we only do fixed priced building contracts. We don't do any cost plus. Everything that we do, whether it's pre-contract or pre-construction, or whether it's post, once we're into construction, there's change orders that we use. That means you'll get quotes for certain parts of whatever it is that the client wants to change or introduce, and we get that quoted and paid for in advance. So this is not really going to work for you if you're doing strict cost plus contracts. And so I think on the next episode, I plan on chatting with you guys about the software that we use. So, there's a lot of questions that get asked, how is it possible that you can do a fixed price contract on a renovation? So we'll talk about that in the next episode. Stay tuned for that. But essentially our sales process really starts from the moment that a client inquires. Now, clients will inquire about, building services in two ways mostly. They'll either call the office, you just heard the phone ring. That could be a project inquiry. We handle all of the inquiries for all of our 10 franchisees that comes through either the Smith & Sons website, or it comes through a toll-free number. All of that is trapped, inside this head office and gets distributed. So there is a lead management partnership. Now, the reason we've chosen to do that is because we know that builders are, for the most part, 6 days a week, are pretty busy. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that clients or homeowners don't ring you while you're up a ladder, while you're in a meeting with another client, while you're dealing with something on a job site, or whether you're walking through the hardware, trying to pick up materials for you guys. So what we want to do is it's important that service that we give our initial inquiries is speedy and it is responsive. And so what we do is we give a lot of air cover, so there is no missed calls when clients call in. That any inquiries that are brought to us either via our chat bot on our website or via Facebook are all handled promptly, and there's communication that happens almost instantaneously in some cases, and that really does increase the credibility, of the brand and the business and of our general contractors right from the get-go, because they don't get the whole voice machine unless they call the office on a weekend, and of course they're going to get the answering machine then. So it's not manned on the weekends. But at least at some point there's some interaction between us at head office and the client to make sure that they feel like they're being handled. So we give our GCs a bit of air cover in that regard, and we add to their credibility. And so, at that point, we take the information from the clients, or whether we collect it through our contact form on our website, and then we add it into their job management software, and we use a company called BuildExact. We used to have proprietary software, but it just became easier to handle the upgrades and the technology advancements and things like that by outsourcing. And so that's what we do. So we use a company by the name of BuildExact. Obviously, I'm going to cover that in the next episode. And so, that process, that shared or that lead management partnership, it really does add credibility to the general contractors, because there's another layer or another level of client management, and it's super important that clients feel that they are being handled. So once our GCs receive that into their software, they'll also get a notification through another app, and that will come with, if the client's uploaded photos or blueprints and all the descriptions and any budget indications, anything like that, all of that gets loaded onto another app and sent off to them. So they will get notification that all the information's been entered into their job management software, and that all of the pictures and everything else has also been included in the job management software. So they've basically got it in duplicate. One is very handy, and then the other one is there when they start going into sort of more of an in-depth discussion with clients and or going into the estimating and quoting process. Probably the first thing that I want to cover, and that this is I think pretty much everything that I'm going to talk about today at some level is going to be either foreign or just completely not even used, and it just depends, because I'm talking to all different types. I'm talking to guys and gals with different backgrounds, different skill sets. I know a lot of GCs, particularly actually our first GC that got in the business with us. The first thing he said to me was, get me a salesperson, because he really didn't enjoy the sales process. However, today, that's the furthest thing from his mind. He's really advanced in his ability and his skill sets, and he runs quite a successful Smith & Sons franchise. So scripts is probably one of the first things. It seems a bit odd. When I'm doing training with our franchise general contractors, I talk about scripts, and not one person's ever said, "Oh, that's so good, I really wanted a script," because they just don't, because it seems odd. But really, the script is just an indication. I mean, for me, when I first started selling franchises to general contractors, that was something where I had to really come up with a bit of a script and a process. And how was I going to go about, reaching out and building rapport, and what questions do I ask and things like that. So I had to sit down and really document the process to ensure that I didn't just get on the phone and waste my marketing money, and also just make these guys and gals feel like I was experimenting on them as far as the script was concerned. Now, we definitely do improvements, and we do tweaks, and we adjust and we finesse some of those scripts. Matter of fact, I'm just onboarding currently a franchise sales and support person, and we were talking about two different scripts in our sales process for franchises. So, this is not something that I just sit here and talk about that might be good for builders, but it's actually good for my business development from a corporate standpoint as well, which is very national. And so, I think it is, we've got scripts for phone calls. We've got scripts for qualifying and disqualifying. We've got scripts for when you have to say no to clients. And I would encourage you, if you don't say no or you don't like to say no, that you consider saying no and you think about how you're going to say no, because if you end up giving a quote to everybody, you're going to be wasting a lot of time and money. And I know you don't want to do that. And so we have, scripts and we have case studies and examples on, a lot of that comes from my personal experience, both, back in Oz and also what I've done since I arrived in Canada. I've got 2 case studies, which I use to demonstrate that are from Canada when I was really running an initial pilot for Smith & Sons here in Canada. And, we really talked about, how we go about doing things a little bit differently than perhaps what is not taught to general contractors. And let's face it, we all got taught how to knock nails into wood. I did my apprenticeship between 89 and 93. I did, framing contracting and finishing and exterior and everything like that for the most part. And then in 2009, I got a builder's license. So, we learn the trade, we develop in the trade. What we don't learn is that whole business. Really, business, I would say sales and business development is probably what we don't get taught. We kind of just make that up on the fly, and that's definitely a lot of the reason why we don't see the majority of general contractors building high-performance businesses. The other thing that we have scripts for is the follow-up and the close. I think too often that I had one guy in particular who really was in the business with me for, a couple of months, and he started to share with me some of the quotes that he'd done 6 months ago, and he'd not got any closure to those. But he thought it was good because it was like he had this collateral in the sky with job prospects. And I said to him, seriously, you need to go and chat with those folks and knock them off the fence. So that essentially is the close part. And that was fairly revolutionary for him, because it was just a lot easier to not worry about that. And yet, there's a percentage of those that you still might be able to convert. So you really need to understand how to close. So, I talk to a lot of the guys in the sales training that sales is one part and of a deal, and then your ability to close and know when that transitions from the sales process to close, and really understand what a buying question is and things like that. So, so there's all those things that are documented. I mean, they're in writing, and they, are really specific on how we handle certain situations. Okay, so part of our process, and, I've just got it down here to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Obviously, we've got the initial phone call. We've got the site visit. We've got the estimate component. And I'm going to run through these in a little bit of detail. We've got the quantity takeoff service, which is essentially how we is the service that we offer to ensure that we can provide our clients with a fixed price quote. We use what we call a selection sheet, which enables us to confirm with the client exactly what they want. We don't really subscribe to putting allowances in our building contracts. I see that as a vulnerability. And it can lead to, it really puts you under pressure as a builder, and certainly, the client is trying to make a decision under duress, and that's what we don't want. The ability to finalize the costing within the quote build as you're moving forward once you've got those selections confirmed, and then of course there's a quote proposal, and that's not something we flick on an email. So let's quickly dig down for the sake of time. We're already a few minutes into this, so I want to be quick. And then I'll finish off with chatting about some of the resources that complement our sales process. So, if you were to look in our ops file, we have, a sales workbook and resource, and then we've got actually the sales process and, how we go about from top to tail. So the initial phone call, really when I get on initial phone call, the idea is to, from the get-go, I want to be building rapport. People do business with people that they know, like, and trust. We know that. And so the initial phone call is really, there is a qualifying part of that. If let's say if I talk to somebody about a bathroom, or an addition, for a kitchen, I might say, look, what we're talking about, I might ask them, hey, what's your expectation dollar-wise? Now, I'm not asking them for a budget. I'm not asking them for a specific build number, because how would they know? They're not a builder. What I want to make sure is that they have a realistic and reasonable understanding as to what this project might actually cost. So I might say to a retail customer, hey, look, Bill, what's your expectation as far as the build cost? And really before he gets a word out, because he's going to be taken back by that, I'm going to say, look, Bill, before you say anything, I want to let you know that on average, my kitchen renovations that I've done in the past or in the recent past are somewhere between 45 and 75,000, depending on your level of finish and inclusions. And, that really is super important. From the get-go, I'm already qualifying because, my time's valuable. Now, if you're only getting 2 leads a month, then you're going to struggle because you won't be able to qualify hard, which means you're going to end up quoting and working for potentially the wrong type of customer. You don't want to be working for a customer that's price-oriented, and that really puts pressure on you and then puts pressure on the relationship between you and your client. And so I don't advise that at all. So really, I'm talking about the sales process, but I could easily go down a rabbit hole and talk about your ability to market and to be able to, get that level of inquiry that's going to support this kind of sales process. So the initial call, basically I just want to talk really brief about it. I want to set them mentally up so that when I get face-to-face with them, because there's, as we work down this process, I'm going to be moving them through gates. And I really want to get, the worst thing you want to do is start putting off the conversation around finance. I really think your knowledge and experience is worth something, and so is your time. And so, if you dick about and don't want to go and talk about that, big elephant in the room, then all you're going to do is create more challenges and more issues and more frustration and stress for yourself. So get comfortable with chatting about it. And I do it in a very non-formal, very personable type way. And, at the end of the day, the clients, buyers can be liars. I'm not going to say buyers are liars. That's very categoric. I'm going to say buyers can be liars. And I don't blame them. I think we've talked about this before where, hey, we go to the new car lot or whatever, and we want to buy a vehicle or we want to buy a new stereo or whatever the case may be. You're never going to show all your cards. So I fully expect them to lowball. But that's why when I lead out categorically and say, look, based on my experience, and when you tell a story, it's hard for people to argue with your story. And so when I say, look, my experience is that kitchen's going to cost you between 45 and 75, depending on finishes and depending on, your level of inclusion, all of a sudden the cat's out of the bag. And now I really can start asking some questions about what they think about that. And if they think, well, Max, we only thought that was going to be a $25,000 kitchen, my next question is automatically, so, what do you think you can do about that? Does that mean that, pretty much this is dead in the water, or are you able to, access some more? Now, I won't get a strong answer from them at that point. But the strong answer that I will get is, oh, well, no, we definitely haven't got the money for that. And immediately I know that the opportunity is now dead in the water at the moment. Now, what I won't do is disregard and ignore that, contact. I might say, look, why don't we stay in touch? Feel free to email me back in, 3 or 4 months, and maybe we'll set up a time to do a site visit then. So that can all happen on an initial phone call. So it's important that you have a really good understanding, and you've got I talk to my guys about, firmness with courtesy. I don't want to come across as an arrogant know-it-all. I certainly don't want to be a wishy-washy type of builder. So in the middle there, I call it firmness with courtesy. So really the tone that I'm using with you today is essentially the tone that I would use with my retail customers. It's not flamboyant, it's not over the top, but it's certainly not wishy-washy. They understand that, I'm authority. I'm an authority. I've got experience in the industry. I've obviously got, some credibility as it relates to my initial costing because of, the projects that we've done in the past. And that certainly does go a long ways. And like I said, if you've got good lead gen, then the ability to qualify quickly is definitely an asset for you. Okay, so let's say they've gone, well, look, Max, 45 to 75 is a little bit more than what we expected. But look, super happy just to sort of go to the next step. What would that be? And I'll say, look, Bill, what we want to do is we want to meet on site. I want to be able to, get a bit of an eyeball on the lay of the land, take some photos, some measurements, and really get a bit more of a micro understanding perhaps of what it is that you want and what you want it to look like. And then we book the time to go and visit. So when I'm there, I really like to, I'll walk in with now I'm a bit old school, so I have a binder, it's only 1/2 an inch thick, and I've got my client inquiry form in that, and I think I mentioned that in our resources. And I really like to get them talking. I ask them a couple of questions. I might say, look, just tell me what bothers you about your current, situation as far as the design's concerned. And they will definitely chew my ear off for minutes, And so I got to be careful. I do want to get out of there within 60 minutes. Most of the time I can get out within 30 minutes. So you really, your time's valuable. You don't want to feel like, them to feel like they've got you at their beck and call. You want to be fairly expeditious in your approach, but you want to be methodical and organized as well when you do those visits. Now, that's the first question. So I say, hey, tell me what bothers you about what you want. And that can go on for, 5, 10, 15 minutes. Now, the next thing that I do is there's 3 components that I use to then start getting some context, some serious context, because I'm always moving them to the next gate. And I'll say, look, so what I want to do up front is, if you are going to become one of my clients, I want to turn you into a raving fan. I share that with them on the first meeting. I do want to turn you into a raving fan. But before we get there, I really want to know, we want to make sure that the project, delivery is something that it works well, so it's functional, it looks good, it has a high aesthetic value, and that it does fit your financial, capabilities and your financial wherewithal. So if I can get it, within their budget or around their budget, or they can make their budget meet what we do, that it does work for them and it looks great, that usually is the trifecta that will actually bring that deal together. No point in having something that works well, looks good, but it's 40% over their capabilities financially. No good having something that, it's within their financial capability, that looks great but doesn't work for them. Like, you can see how it's important that you've got to have that trifecta lined up. So I would urge you to, really, have that as part of your conversational early on in that first meeting, in that site visit. So when we essentially, once I get done, and sometimes I will listen to the client's chat and I'll say, look, I'll tell you what, just give me 5. I'm just going to run around, make some measurements. So I don't want to be measuring up while I'm talking with them. I want to give them undivided attention. I want to be taking notes. But at some point when I feel like I've gathered enough intel and enough information about their project and their situation, I'll just say, look, can you give me 5 or 10 minutes? I want to run around. I want to take some measurements, check ceiling heights, everything like that, window dimensions, door dimensions, everything like that. And I just need about 10 or 15 minutes to run around and do that. You go, okay. So essentially what I want is, I want my own space now, because I don't want to come back and do this later. So a lot of the time I will prepare for the point where I've got to then converse with my draftsman. So I want to make sure that any exterior walls that are affected, I want to take photos of those exterior walls. And I want to have measurements. I want to have, dimensions from the interior corner to the window, to ensure that if I have to, I don't actually need to go back there for a remeasure. So I'm investing a little bit more time, but I'm just hedging my bets. I'm making sure that I've got all the data that I need. So look, once we've got to the end of that site visit, obviously the clients are interested. Hey, Max, what does it cost? And so what I normally, the caveat is that I can give you, we talked about the 45 to 75. Look, that's probably where that's probably where we're at as far as what we'd call a bracketed price range. Now, it's at this point, and based on the conversations that I've had both on the initial phone call and the site visit, at that site visit, I'll say, look, for us, and remember, we're talking about fixed price quotes here, not cost plus. If you're cost plus, you're going to say 45 to 75 and you're going to run away and get a cost plus contract organized and you're off to the races. It's not how we do business though. What we do is I'll say to them, look, I'm just going to pop you an email tonight. It'll be a 2-paragraph. It might have half a dozen dot points, and I'll give you a bit of an idea of what the project duration is and really when we might be able to start that, project of yours, considering the fact that, the sales cycle and the design phase could be, as long as 8 weeks on a kitchen. I mean, we don't know. And we're going to sort of, check availabilities and all those sorts of things. But I'm going to give you that email. It's going to be 1 or 2 paragraphs. It's going to be a bit of a dot point as far as what some of the basic inclusions might be. It's going to be a project duration, a period of time that we think it's going to take to build. It's going to take to build your kitchen or renovate into your kitchen. And then at that point, I'll talk about what we call the quantity takeoff service. And essentially, the quantity takeoff service is made up of 2 parts. It's my ability to talk to my my subcontractors and also my suppliers and vendors, and gather up what I would call the core building material cost in conjunction with the selection sheet that I will issue to the client to make sure that we've got all of those items that have aesthetic value that I can't choose as a general. I can choose drywall, I can choose, studs and concrete and all that sort of stuff. But things like, countertops and door handles and types of doors and basin case and, is there any feature walls, what time, any kind of other, nice effects, what kind of backsplash tiles, what kind of floor coverings, all of that sort of stuff they actually need to pick. So they're going to have to get on Google and go, well, we like this and we like that product and all that sort of jazz, tap sets, all of the accessories that go into bathrooms like mirrors and things. So all of that, I need that before I can actually build it. And I'll talk to the clients about the level of detail that goes into providing or presenting, a fixed price quote. And for that service, on a project like that, that might start at $500. Now that basically that excludes everything. If on some of the larger projects we do, like additions and major renovations, doesn't include draftsmen and architects, doesn't include engineers, doesn't include geotechs, doesn't include interior design services. That is the fee that you charge to oversee the gathering or the orchestration between all of those different stakeholders to be able to bring it to a head and actually sit down and do a quote, present a final price, a final proposal. So, we talk about the QTS or the quantity takeoff service. And so they will go away and think about that. And they'll, and the reason we do, I guess what enables us to do fixed price quotes is our, the way we estimate, but we certainly, there's benefits to the client as well. The fixed price proposal, the fixed price contract will give them peace of mind, security, and satisfaction. And so, that's super important to clients. A lot of the clients we talk to have done cost plus contracts, and it always ends in tragedy, both for the builder and for the client. And so, I think a lot of people are, I think in a commercial sense, it's called a feasibility study, monies you'll pay to all the different vendors or, contractors to give prices for a commercial project before it's even been approved. They want to make sure that, that the possibility is there and it's legitimate. So for the clients, we really impress upon them that, for $500, let's say for this kitchen renovation or remodel, it's a fairly small price to pay to know what you get, how much it costs, and when it's going to be finished by. And so, that's super important that we make sure that detail is put forward, and but we don't, our knowledge and experience and our time is worth something. So we need to do that. So you look on acceptance of that quantity takeoff service quote, and we do that in the way of a quote. We present them with an official document that says this is what it'll cost you for the QTS, and this is what you get. This is what's excluded, and I just outlined that with engineers and architects, etc. Then we will issue them with a selection sheet, and then the quote building process takes place. Now, something that's just a bit of a side note to that, part of that process, obviously, us general contractors love to, get paid for that service. And I think, whenever I consult with my legal counsel or my lawyer for whatever it is that we need him to do, there's sometimes where he doesn't actually provide me anything in hard copy. It's that advice, it's that knowledge, it's that experience that we actually value and we end up paying for. And so that's an important part of that quantity takeoff service that we offer. However, the flip side is that when we do transact with clients at that low level, and I want to reassure you that this is not about, right, how many hours does this quote going to take me to do? How many phone calls? That's got nothing to do with it. What we're looking to do is transact at a very low level. And in doing so, what we're doing is it's an indication from the client that there is a level of trust between them and us, which is great. And it's very likely that if you transact at a low level, that you will actually move into the contract at a high level and actually move into the build contract. So then we want to move to finalizing the cost for the project. And when we do that in-house, we want to make sure that we've actually allocated costings and we've included all their specifications. We want to make sure that if there's things that we've got question marks around, we want to go and talk to them. There's a little bit of to and fro in that process. And then when we finally put that together, what we want to do is actually sit down with them and present the proposal. Now we want to have, obviously the proposal itself with the price, but really what we want to do is we want to demonstrate massive value. The last thing that I want to do is reveal the price to the client. I don't want to just go down and say, all right, here's the price. There's no way of knowing whether or not that price is of any value until they've had the value demonstrated. So there's a lot of, we want to go through every line item if we can, or at least every category, and explain the phases of construction. Because what we're trying to do is, if we are selling peace of mind and security, then we want to make them feel secure in the presentation that, okay, this is what we intend to do. So again, we don't want to be a wishy-washy builder. We don't want to be an arrogant know-it-all. In the middle, we want to be the authority. We want to, really issue the information with firmness and courtesy at the same time. And I think, from what we've done in the past leading up to this moment, that we seem to have some, decent success there. And of course, once you've presented the proposal, normally we find that most folks are able to make a decision in the next 24, 48 hours. And a lot of the time you will get those buying questions inside that proposal meeting. They're like, okay, Max, it is more than what we expected, but there's definitely a lot more involved than what we thought. And they can actually reconcile that. And most folks are pretty, clued on. And they're saying, okay, Max, so how long does it take to start the process? That is a fairly typical buying question. Because really what they're saying is, okay, we want to get started. How soon can you get in there? So, that's where I start moving to close. And I'll say, look, for us to commence this project, at the moment, we've got this 4-week, waiting time. However, if we go to contract, we can actually start ordering the cabinets and getting that designed, sorted out. And so there's a lot of prelim stuff that we can do. So we're not actually going to lose a lot of time. We don't want to start, demolishing your existing kitchen until, we have to. And so those kinds of conversations is and then really it is a natural flow into the contract phase. And at this point, I really, at that point, we sort of understand that, okay, we've pretty much done a deal here. Now, something else to consider real quick, I know I've been talking for a while, something else to consider real quick is that, a lot of what I've just explained happens pre-contract. And something I talk about in training when I'm bringing our new franchised operators through is that I have this, and if you could see me on the podcast, on the YouTube video, I have this irritation meter, if you like. And, when you do a cost plus contract, everyone's happy to get started, and they're really, on the irritation meter, there is no irritation. It's like, great, we're just happy to get the renovation started, glad we've got a general contractor. But over time in the build process, what happens is, because of things that happen to us as general contractors, and certainly there's some things that are out of our control with either suppliers or subcontractors, we have to keep postponing or making excuses. And what happens is that builds irritation with the client to the point when you get right through the build process, the irritation is way up. And so what happens is when we're, and I've talked about this in previous podcasts, when you go to our Smith & Sons website, there's over a dozen client testimonials. When you've, over the course of the project, where the irritation level has gone so high, what happens is you've got no opportunity then to ask the clients, hey, would you like to share your story? Because A, you probably don't want them to share your story, and B, they do not want to share their story either because they're just tired of looking at you. So, whereas what we do is we back it up and we do a lot of work pre-contract that really does also create some irritation, but it's not inside the contract zone. So, for you as an operator, it's a great opportunity for you to get to know the type of client. And we've had situations where our guys have done quantity takeoff services and it's not gone to contract. Doesn't happen very often, but a lot of the time it's because the builder's just gone, hang on a minute, I actually don't want to work for this client. And so they do, in occasions they have bowed out. So, that's certainly a good opportunity for you to get to know your client. And the other thing is what happens is, as the time goes, along as we do the quantity takeoff and we're building the proposal, there is irritation that builds within that process as well. So by the time we've got them to contract, they're like, wow, that was a lot of work. And like picking all of those colors and the different floor coverings and the different tiles, like there's so much work. And I'm just like, I just want to get into construction. And we feel the same way. Now, having done all of that heavy lifting in the pre-construction, pre-contract phase, what happens is once we then get into construction, the irritation over the period of time that the contract goes on begins to diminish. Why? Because we've done all the work pre-contract. So now things are actually starting to happen. You've been able to pre-order appliances, kitchen cabinets, anything with a big lead time. And as you roll through, everyone's got good warning on, because you're using a project management tool. So you're scheduling trades and deliveries, in advance. And as the project goes through, we're not saying we're perfect, but our ability to deliver efficiently and expeditiously is quite high. Because we have a very scientific and calculated approach to the delivery methods, involved. And so, I think what happens is then over time, people begin to see the value of all the work that we did pre-contract, pre-construction, and they just watch it unfold. And like I said, every project is not without its glitches and not without its little rough patches. However, it's very minimal compared to that which you'd go through if you're in a cost-plus arrangement. And so when we do get to the final day where the certificate of completion is issued, all of our guys are really geared up to say, look, we'd love to, to have you share your experience with us to help other prospective clients that might be considering using Smith & Sons. We'd love to have you to get that on the record. How do you feel about that? And of course, we've got gifts and things that we provide when we go and do those testimonials. So, that really does bundle up our sales process, and we've been going a fair while. So I'm just going to quickly conclude with just quickly sharing with you some of the resources that we offer our guys and gals and our franchise general contractors as part of their ops file. And I'll quickly talk about them really briefly. I'll start off with the indicative project costing sheet. Now, a lot of our guys come in and they've never done anything consistently enough to work on the numbers. This indicative project costing sheet was probably developed through collaboration with at least 6 of our general contractors. And what it does, it's not a price sheet. It's an indicative project costing. And so what it enables is for guys that go out and they go, all right, well, this is an addition, it's 800 square feet, or there's a deck that's 350 square feet. We've got what we call square foot rates. And they just help for our builders to be able to actually come up with a price range. So, you might have, a deck that ends up being, multiplied by the indicative pricing square foot rate that we've got, and it might come up as 20 grand. And you might say to the client, look, it's going to be somewhere between 20 and 29,000. It's just a way that the guys can really go with some level of confidence and talk to the clients about the bracketed price range. Now, just what we tend to do is when we create that bracketed price range, as a side note, is if we do come up with 20,000, we might then say to the client, look, it's between 20 and 28,000. So we might create the price range off a baseline, of 20,000, use 40%, say, for a number. So it's somewhere between 20 and 28,000. So when we sit down to do our costing, what you'll find is you'll fall into the lower end of that price range, which makes all of the clients happier. So, we're very much in touch with we're very scientific, very calculated, and of course we understand that there's a little bit of psychology that's involved as well. So that's what the indicative project costing is all about. The meeting file I talked about, that has client inquiry forms in it. I flip that around on its back and I start taking notes. I might have a laser measurer, and of course I've got my phone for pics, which uploads to a Dropbox or something like that, or a Google file, whatever your preference is. I know that some of the guys use what they call a Magic Plan app, and that enables them to build a bit of a layout, gives a bit of a 3D sketch. So that's something you might want to look into if you're tech savvy in that regard. The other thing that we offer as well is a Workmanship guarantee certificate. So it's really just a pledge to say that, we stand behind, what we do as general contractors. Again, it's about peace of mind, security, and satisfaction. We have a fixed price building contract that all of our guys get when they join with Smith & Sons. That's drawn up by our lawyers. I consulted with them based on my experience, and then we came up with this 13 or 14 page contract. And there's a lot of good information that does protect our general contractors, but also makes it very clear for our clients as well. The payment schedule calculator, that's something a lot of guys, especially in renovations, not so much in new homes because you've got a high level of predictability, but in renovations, guys are like, hey, there's a payment, a stage claim payment schedule within the contract. And they're like, well, how much do I take up front, and how do I divide this up, and how do I make sure that, I get my numbers right? And so we've got, it's a very basic spreadsheet, and it helps them really calculate percentages and obviously the totals for each of the stage claims, and to make sure that they don't go and claim 110%. or they don't leave lines out. So there's that. It just gives them security. And just on that, the payment schedule calculator is really there. I urge them to look at their cost spikes. So this might be a takeaway from you as well. It's like, okay, Max, how do I calculate my payment claim stages? How do I calculate those? And what I would do is always build a bow wave of cash in the job, not too much, but you got to maintain good cash flow and good cash at bank. You got to keep liquid. And I would then look at my cost spikes. Now, something we're going to talk about in the next episode will be, a lot to do with our job management software. And in that, we get a Gantt chart. So basically, it's, in a quick, summary, it's tasks down the left-hand side. And then on each of those lines, we can create start dates for that task and then the number of days that we need to complete the task. And some tasks run simultaneously, some tasks run in series. And so, that gives us a bit of an idea as to, how long the project's going to take, how long each task's going to take, but it also identifies for us where our costs are, where our cost spikes are. So we want to ensure that, we're billing at the right time for the right amount of money, because if you start undercooking it, you're going to find yourself in a financial bind, and we definitely don't want our guys to be in that position. So we've got a couple of deficiency list docs. We've got obviously the initial deficiency list, which might happen in a week before you're due to hand over or give the keys back. There's a deficiency list, and then there's a deficiency correction. So we want to make sure that we reconcile, okay, this is the list, and then we go away, and as we check those off, that we're making notes of that and when it's going to happen. And how you finalize that final payment is really up to you. But we would like to think that we can finalize the costings and we have an official deficiency list, and we're going to correct those within 14 days after. Usually that's doable. Anything that's maybe you've got to then interact with the manufacturer because you've got a failed appliance or something like that, then that's going to take a little longer than a couple of weeks. So think about that. And of course, then there's the piece de resistance, which is the certificate of completion. That really draws a line in the sand when that was the determining factor. We'd like to think that we've finished on budget and ahead of time. That's what we shoot for. But as much as we start with a building contract and we have that signed and it has a commencement date, we want to make sure that the date of completion is documented and that it is all covered off. So look, guys and gals, that is a fairly deep-ish dive into our sales process. I really hope that helps. If you've got any questions, hit me up, max@businessforbuilders.ca. You can text me at 250-241-8866, and I will respond to you as promptly as I can. Keep doing what you're doing. Get better, build a bigger business, and we'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.